Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christine at Health Current, and thank you again for joining us for the HIE 3.0 overview and transition. Today's presentation will be hosted by Keith Parker, our Chief Information Officer, as well as Christy Dye, our Chief Business Development Officer. We do have a large group today, so we are going to be on all lines and encourage you to use the chat feature throughout today's presentation. Our demo will be provided to us today by Sandra Wiebelhaus, and you'll be able to see the platform in action. I'm going to turn our presentation over to Keith and Christy to begin. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Christine. And this is Keith Parker. I'll take the first part of our presentation, and Christy will pick it up toward the end to wrap everything up as we move forward. So I'd like to start with thanking everybody for joining us on this exciting webinar. And I say exciting webinar because this has been a long road to get to where we're finally scaling and transitioning everybody over to our new platform. So very exciting, huge news, and it's great for Arizona, great for all of our hospitals and all of our healthcare providers as we improve upon our health information exchange platform and our ability to manage data across the healthcare spectrum. So our agenda for today is to give a quick HIE 3.0 overview. We will then transition to Sandra Wiebelhaus, who's going to demonstrate our portal to include our 42 CFR protected data functionality and how we're going to manage consent in that environment. So very exciting for that. And then Christy's going to pick up and talk about our alerts and portal transition, what's required from all of our end users to be able to transition their alerts over to the new environment, as well as all of their end users on the portal. And then we'll wrap it up with questions. I would say, just because it's my presentation style, and Christy and I spoke about this a little bit, as questions do come up, put them in the chat box. If I see something that is pertinent to what I'm speaking to, I will read it and then answer the question before we move on from there. We will then use, at the end of this, a time to clean up any questions that weren't answered, and we will read those questions and then answer them as we move forward. So with that, let's begin. Again, Arizona HIE history. Arizona's got a rich history in supporting, through collaboration, our ability to better exchange data and interoperability across our healthcare spectrum. So if you remember, over 10 years ago, we had multiple organizations as RIOs, Regional Health Information Organizations, Health Information Exchanges, HIE, ASHEC, AMI were the primary ones. And over a series of years, the state really came together to bring all of these organizations under one umbrella to be able to look at interoperability through a closer statewide lens rather than a disparate lens. And I bring that out because it's really important. HIEs are really here to facilitate health information exchange across the health system, not the individual organizations, not the individual health systems that provide both ambulatory, non-ambulatory, post-acute, acute care, healthcare, but across all those organizations, across state, federal, and other healthcare as well. So health information exchanges provide an extremely important part of this, and having it under that umbrella to where it is a larger systems approach to data exchange, interoperability, and data management is extremely important. And I would say kudos to us as a state in how we've gone forward in doing this. Now, with that, it's lended itself to us having to transition. This is our third time onto a new platform to meet growing demand, to meet growing need. So with that, our new environment, or what is HIE 3.0? HIE 3.0 is what we've put in place to meet not only today's interoperability and data management needs for the state of Arizona and to meet national direction and standards, but what we see as an environment that will move us forward for the foreseeable future as well. And I say foreseeable future because technology continues to grow and change, and one of our biggest challenges is being able to grow and mature that technology to meet our needs. So our new environment is really one and expanding our platform to meet expanding market needs. It's ground up from a provider and a patient ability to aggregate that data, as well as roles-based, and how we move data into the environment. So it's really about how do we aggregate clinical data. And I debated taking the word clinical out of there because, as everybody is aware of, or hopefully you are, we're also moving into social determinants of health and advanced directives. So it's really how do we aggregate clinical / health data / individual data that's relevant, and then how do we actually make that a community-wide patient information into insights that improve overall, not just patient care, but patient health outcomes. So extremely important, and it's a huge challenge for us to be able to put in place the environment, the technology to be able to support that. So the benefits we're looking at from this new environment is an increased user experience, increased patient and clinical ability to search, how you actually search for, how do you receive that data. System performance, extremely important. We've gone over the past decade from moving thousands of alerts monthly to moving well over 10 million, from doing hundreds to thousands of document queries, document retrievals, and moving those documents amongst our settings to, again, well into the millions. So we have to have a system that's going to be able to perform, as well as scalability. And we truly believe here at Health Current that single sign-on starts with the providers and the provider organizations, and your ability to sign into your environment and have our interoperability connect directly into your environment so it's seamless. So your single sign-on is actually when you go into Cerner, when you go into Epic, when you go into NextGen or eClinical or NetSmart, any of the environments that you're on. Data management and reliability, data security and protection, and reporting. Data security and protection, we've done a lot to make sure that our processes and certain aspects of our platform, we just recently submitted for our high trust certification. So we're meeting and exceeding that security and protection piece. So extremely important aspects to the benefits that we're looking for and that we feel that we've achieved. Then it's all about how do we connect from a healthcare solutions perspective. And this goes through from the CDR, which represents inpatient, ambulatory, and documents. And the documents, you can see that as representing SDOH, as representing ADR, as representing, other assessments, other information that's needed to be shared across our healthcare continuum. And then it's really, how do we bring it in from an automated perspective for both inbound and outbound exchange? How do we also ensure, and of course, it wouldn't be good technology if I didn't have at least one hiccup on how my graphics are coming up, but how do we also ensure access, the right place, the right time for access by the right role, the right providers, or those individuals that are authorized or need to go into that environment. Then from there, how do we actually ensure that there's international or national connectivity going into Sequoia, direct messaging, PCDH, all those other environments that are out there. Along with that, other applications. It's extremely important that we take a look at this from another perspective, and that is you as the end user, as you bring in other applications, as you look at other things that are needed, how do they then connect to our environment? These are all extremely important aspects as we were designing a new or bringing on our new architecture. So it's extremely important that we met the entire healthcare continuum from start to end and supporting. So as we move forward, some of the key features: clinical content management, API. Our new environment is an API or application programming interface first approach. It's extremely important for us that we went down this path as the federal government, ONC, HHS, HL7, certain large organizations that are setting interoperability standards are moving into an API environment along with FHIR. So it's our ability to meet these new and changing requirements in interoperability. User portal, how do we access the information and make it more usable for you? Consent and data protection, extremely important. Again, how we manage consent as it relates to our state statute, as well as federal and national statutes, such as 42 CFR Part 2. How do we manage those inside a single environment so you, the end user, through your role, can have access to that information with seamless consent management? Doesn't mean you always are going to be able to see the patient record, because we have to apply that consent and we have to ensure that we have the appropriate roles for you to be able to view that, as well as cloud hosting. So this is an aspect for those of you that have been doing this for years and years and years, where we used to have the servers and we'd rack them locally. That just was not scalable. So this is an environment that lives within Amazon Web Services, and the environment is set up in such a way to where it scales based on demand, based on how much data is flowing, to ensure that we can scale to meet our end users' needs. So if we see a significant increase in data movement, we can scale certain aspects of our environment to meet those demands and move forward. So scaling on demand and cloud hosting is another important aspect. That leads to what benefits to us as a state does this bring? Greater data fidelity, right? Ensure that we can trace all patients back to the point of origin. Usability, easy to navigate, as well as powerful UI configurations and the ability to seamlessly integrate within your environments. If the data is there and it's naturally made part of your workflows, we're doing our job. If the workflow includes going to the portal, making it easy, or the access as easy as possible, along with those user interfaces being as easy as possible for you to find that information, we've done our job. So scalability. How do we actually replace our old environment with something that's going to be able to scale to meet not just our state's demands, but as we see patients move across the country, our ability to query and send data back across the entire country, as well as us to be able to query outside of our state. I oftentimes joke that medical referral patterns don't follow state lines. This is why we needed something that was scalable. So if I am a snowbird coming from, say, Seattle, Washington down to Mesa for the winters, we can query the information from other states and bring it into our environment. And I go back to my home state, they can query us for that information as well. Configurability, scalability, and accessibility, all extremely key benefits that we're looking for as we're moving forward. Data fidelity and event sourcing. So I'm going to go through this one pretty quick because I just covered some of it. But from this perspective, as we look at how the original messages, the process messages, the transactions, and how it's loaded into our environment, being in an API first environment and the way we've looked at data fidelity, we can actually tag all that based on the data source, where it's coming from, as well as the patient information. So if we need to go in and block or remove something based on information from our data sources, from our providers, we have the ability to do that. It gives us a lot more flexibility when looking at data and how data is being used to understand exactly where it is, how the sourcing, how the event took place, and how it's related back to a data source. So from this perspective, extremely important aspect, especially when we're talking about things such as breaking the glass for 42 CFR Part 2. We've got to be able to trace that data back to the origins to be able to comply with the federal statute and notifying those data sources that that information was just accessed. So this is an extremely important aspect of the environment as well. So this leads us to data protection in 42 CFR Part 2. So I'm going to kind of go through quickly just to get to the end slide. And this deals with, by putting all this in place, we can then have data. So if Dr. Monroe, as this slide depicts, is not allowed to redisclose that data, he needs to know that that data was protected data before he receives it. Through our environment, all the data being received, if it is protected, will have tags, will have information stating that it is protected data, allowing Dr. Monroe or his staff or that organization to say this is protected data and needs to follow those guidelines, needs to follow 42 CFR Part 2 around redisclosure, that it can only be redisclosed if the appropriate consent and those individuals authorized to see it is all in place. So again, how we put our system together was extremely important that it didn't just meet one aspect of our healthcare environment, but the entire or all the needs of our healthcare environment, because patients need to be looked at as a whole, not as just physical health, behavioral health, SDOH, advanced directives, but the ability to view all that information as consent and as roles are applied to it. So extremely important aspects as we move forward with this. And it also allows us to ensure that not only the HIE is compliant, but we're being compliant in supporting all of our downstream and upstream users as well, from a data source to our end data consumers. So moving forward, I like putting this slide up here just from a patient aggregate perspective. And this really does expand as we're talking about SDOH, as we're talking about CBOs and how they support SDOH, as we're talking about ADRs or advanced directives. But patient aggregate information really is coming from all aspects of our environment. So it was really important that we're able to bring all that together into one patient aggregate view. And by bringing it all together into one patient aggregate view, it allows us to apply layers. And the layers start with the data source. By identifying that data source as protected or non-protected, those data elements then can become part of the layers we put in this. So data access constraints, confidentiality, privilege, and consent all apply layers. So when we take a look at this, we can then look at who can have access to this from a user role perspective. What's the appropriate user role, and what are those different layers that that user can then move through to be able to get the information that they're authorized to see. And this is applied across our environment as it relates to data reports, as it relates to data queries, data retrieval, as far as us exchanging documents, CCDs or continuity of care documents, as well as portal access. So we apply those layers, end user roles as it pertains to the layers in the data source across accessibility within our environment. So it's very important that we understand that. This then moves into the area of, it puts really patient aggregate information, both protected and non-protected. And when I'm saying protected, I'm really talking, usually it's pertaining to 42 CFR Part 2 protected data. There are a few other elements that we apply protections to, but for this, it's really protected data, and we're drilling down to SAMHSA 42 CFR Part 2. So we have it all in the boat from that perspective. As we move forward, we can then take a look at those data elements and then isolate them as far as protected and non-protected, and what can and cannot be viewed based on those roles, based on the data sources, based on the groups that we put together in this environment. So what this does is this now leads us to, we have a patient aggregate that has all that information. We can isolate different data elements from that patient aggregate to make it available based on that user role, based on what they can and cannot see. So now if we have an individual that can view protected, general physician, they have the right keys, they can view all of the protected and non-protected data within that patient aggregate. So again, extremely important concepts as we're looking at the new environment. So a couple things before we go into the portal. We built an environment or an architecture that is API first, that is scalable, that improves data fidelity, data quality, and how we actually bring the data in and display it. And we're improving on a regular basis. And I bring that up because it's really all of us working together to improve data quality as well on that. Not just the environment, but the data sources and how they input the data and bring it to us. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition over to Sandra, so we can go ahead and go through our portal demonstration that's also going to include, so Sandra, if you want to go ahead and start sharing, that's also going to walk through our portal, as well as walk through consent management and some of our crisis or 42 CFR Part 2 information. Sandra?
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. We'll get started. You'll be working with your account managers before you can gain access to the new HDH environment. I want to kind of preface that first, you'll be required to do some mandatory training before you get the access or before any kind of username or password is issued to you. Once you get ready to log in and you've taken all your training, this is the login page that you'll get. You'll be given a temporary password where you'll be able to change that password, select your new password, and then you're able to see the actual application. In the event that you forget your password, you would be able to go ahead and click this option, and it would go ahead and send you a code via email where you're able to go ahead and reset your password. So that is working and functioning as designed. So that's the good news. I know we had kind of a couple of issues before, but this is looking good for us. I'm going to go ahead and just go to our training site. As soon as you log in, it'll take you to what's called our quick search navigation page. This is going to allow you to look for a patient either by demographics or by patient ID. At the top, you'll notice that it is identifying me as a user, Sandra Wiebelhaus, and my role. You'll have some navigation icons. This is the search feature, which is the page that we're on now. We'll talk about these other ones as I go through my portal training. I'm going to first do a basic navigation training, and then we'll kind of walk into the consent management role. So for here, I'm going to go ahead, and actually I'm going to use a patient ID. For those of you who were on the call on Tuesday, you might have seen some of this, but you can, we do require first name, last name, date of birth, and a search reason. The search reasons will be based on your role at your organization, whether you're a care coordinator, health plan, a medical provider, which is usually treatment that's used for that. I'm going to go ahead and show you kind of my search here. Once I go into that search, I would select my drop-down reasons, and then just go ahead and access the patient. So in this case, I'm a provider, and I'm going to go ahead and click search. It's going to find my patient here, and this is the one I'm looking for. You can also do, you can actually do what's called an advanced search, which is something that we had in our MR, but this is a little more robust. If I go to my advanced search, I'm able to find encounters for this patient. And as you kind of notice, it's kind of building your parameters down here based on this patient. Maybe I want to find any kind of ambulatory or any other kind of encounter, or maybe I'm looking for just a specific date that they were admitted. Maybe the patient says I was admitted in the month of June, but I can't recall when. You can continue to do your search with as many data elements or medications, prescriptions, procedures, so on and so forth. And then you could click your search. And it's telling you that for that particular patient, there was no types of ambulatory admissions. So in this case, what I really want to do is just go back to my search. I can go ahead and put in my ID for this patient again. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop the patient open. This is now our landing page. These are the clinical data cards. These are all configurable. And then it's kind of nice because you can actually remove data cards if you want, or include data cards. Maybe there's, if you're a case manager or a medical provider and there's only certain things you want to see and you don't want to, pollute your page with things you're not really interested in. This is a good way to call out those that kind of information so you can access it easily. Additionally, there's a new feature called the patient summary view. And if I click on that, this is a very nice feature. Sometimes it'll take a little time loading because it's finding more things. This is a nice feature if you're doing maybe a first-time intake for the patient, where you're able to see the last few admissions, what kind of clinical data is out there, social history, the last blood pressure or respiratory rate or heart rate. Very nice feature for those for new patient searches. Additionally, what we want to call it, and then you would have to click on this to take it out of view so that you can get back to your summary screen. And additionally, what I wanted to show you is we kind of have a new feature called an in-chart search feature, which is really awesome. And I'll kind of show you how that works. This is going to make it very nice for the clinicians to kind of laser focus on things that they're looking for. Let's just say, for example, you're only caring about this particular patient's conditions. Maybe you only want to look at allergies. You can click and select as many of these as you want, and then you're going to click your search button. And then you're able to kind of focus on, okay, so they had this problem. It was diagnosed at a certain, location. And then if you do they have little collapsible panels now. You can do the view more, and it'll actually take you to that encounter, which will give you more information. I do want to put a disclaimer. We're in a test environment, so it's not as robust. You can go back to the search feature here, and you're able to continue to look for more information. All of these are collapsible, and you can get to the information. And what's even nicer for this actually is at the encounter level, I can actually go to an encounter and I can see what happened during that encounter kind of at a bird's eye view. So I can look at the encounter here. We'll wait for it to load. Sometimes it takes a little bit time to load. Hopefully it will load for us. But you can actually go through the encounter level. Let me try going through this from here. And of course, I'm going to only select, in this case, encounters. And then here we go. So I can look at the encounter here. This is an encounter, whether it's at a hospital or whatever area that you're looking for, you would be able to kind of navigate, and it will show you all the diagnoses attached to that encounter. Again, we're in a test environment, so we don't have as much data as we'd like to have in here. But additionally, what you can also do is it keeps a history in this little pop-up here. It's called a patient list. If you click it open, it kind of remembers the last 5 patients that you viewed, but it also allows you to pin a patient. So if I want to follow this patient, maybe a high ED utilizer, I can go ahead and go to the actions, and I can say, you know, pin this patient. In this case, I already have this patient pinned, or I can unpin it if I'm no longer following that patient. I can also download a document. If I was to download a document here, I can do a PDF. I can ask for a start and an end date, include items with no date. I would generate it. Once I generate it, I'll kind of come over here just for, you know, time's sake. It'll tell you that a document has been downloaded and it's ready to view. And then once you click on the download, it'll appear up at the top of your page where you can open it and view it, and that'll have an encounter history on the patient of the date range that you pick, or if you pick no date range, it's going to kind of give you everything that's in the patient's chart. Additionally, we can also do views from here, much like the in-chart search. You're able to go exactly to those conditions. If I only want to see conditions, it kind of works in the same fashion. And then also we can filter. If I wanted to filter based on a patient, you know, if they don't recall that they were in the ED or the emergency, in the, you know, urgent care, they can just give you a date, and then you can look to see those date ranges. So you're able to get to that information much quicker than trying to have to navigate through the entire summary of the patient chart and so on and so forth. And even nicer now is we do have an ability to subscribe for notifications. Essentially what this means is maybe I'm following this patient for a short period of time, maybe the next 30 days only. I can actually subscribe this patient so I get notifications. I'll kind of walk through that. And I'm going to say, I want to know every time the patient goes into the inpatient, you know, or they get transferred, or an ED or inpatient. You can build that however you want. You can say, notify me once, or you can do a duration. If I want to do 30 days, I can do 30 days. And then I can add this to the work list notification, and we'll kind of talk about where that's at. Or I can have it send it to me direct message if I have a direct message email, and I can have that send it to me there. The work list notification option, if you do select that, the only way you know that that notification lives there is when you log into the portal for the day. You'll get a little red dot down here, or you'll see it up here, and you'll see that there's something for that patient. It'll give you a description of what it is. And I'm also able to go to that work list so I can see which ones did I subscribe to. And maybe I don't want to subscribe to this one, so maybe I can just go ahead and delete that one now. And it's telling you, yes, you can go ahead and delete it. You'll get a little pop-up at the bottom that says you've successfully deleted this subscription. This works outside of or in addition to your normal alerts. So if this kind of different than your portal alerts, the member panels that you're downloading or you're uploading to the site. So I wanted to call that out. But this is another layer if you're trying to follow a patient for a short period of time. All right. Let's see what else I can show you on here. I want to make sure I capture everything. A lot of this stuff was talked about on the last call. But this is great new features. The in-chart search is a new feature we did ask for. We think it's going to be a great clinical feature for our folks. I'm going to go ahead and do our deep dive into behavioral health. I want to also tell you that the demo that I'm doing is going to be for manual consent process. This means this is a upload process. This is not an electronic process. So I'm going to go ahead, and I already have my patient pin because I know which patient I'm going to be going to today. Going to click on that. When you first log into a patient that has protected data, it's going to give you this usage and terms pop-up. And you have to manage this first. But if you are a consent manager at your organization, then essentially what we're going to want you to do is we're going to want you to manage the patient consent by going to this little link that's here. And then we will also show you how to break the glass during this demo. In this case, I am a consent manager. The patient has given me consent to go ahead and manage the consent and to view their data. So I'm going to go to, it automatically pops you to the consent process here. I'm going to go ahead and add a consent for this patient. It's going to be a protected data system. Okay. And then I'm also going to go to whoever is the person that's going to be asking for the access to the data. In this case, I'm going to pick Teros. There I am. I'm going to opt the patient in because what this is doing is saying I'm opting the patient in to view that protected data. So that's the selection I will be working with today. And then I'm going to put a date. Today's the date that they allowed me to see their data. If I don't put any date on the expiration date, it's a default of 1 year in our system. Otherwise, if the patient gives you a timeline, then of course you want to add that timeline there. We're going to ask you to add the authoring facility here. In this environment, it's not set up, but that will be something we'll be doing in the future. And there'll be a lot more training centered around this when we get ready to roll it out. And then additionally, we want to make sure to choose the file. This is the actual consent that, you know, patient is stating to us that, yes, you can access my data. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And we always kind of tell people when we're training them to make sure to select the patient, you know, when you're uploading these into your environment, you know, or your desktop, you know, put the patient's first name, last name, part to consent, and the date of that consent. That way, you know, that's the match that you want to apply to this particular patient. And you see it uploaded it there. And now I'm going to add it. Okay. And there's one more step, and we will do this in training. There's a little button up here. It's kind of discreet. We want to make sure to hit save. Otherwise, if you navigate away from this, then you're going to have to start the process all over again. All right, I'm ready to go. I get a little pop-up that says I've updated this patient successfully. I'm going to go back to my summary page. And I still have to manage a few things. I have to manage the fact that it says that I'm accessing protected data and that I understand the 42 CFR rules and I do accept these terms. That's the only way I'll still get to the data. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And the only thing I have to do now is go ahead and hit continue. And this will now give me access to any protected data that's out here. And here we go. And I'm also going to do a demo on crisis summary. In this case, this patient doesn't have any, but I will show you how to break the glass. And then also we will show you during our deep dive training, you know, further on down the road when we get ready to implement how you're going to revoke a consent, anything like that. We're going to, you know, for time's sake, I don't want to take too much time doing a lot of this stuff, but we will show you the process for that as well. Now, also, once you've applied the consent, and because I didn't add a date, it's giving me a year date range. When I log back out and I log back in, I should always see this data. The only pop-up I'll still get the little disclaimer pop-up that says, I understand that I'm accessing this data. You'll click on that and you'll hit continue. That's still a pop-up that lives there. And then you can continue to go to your patient's chart and see all the data. All right, now I'm going to go to another patient, and this one I'm actually going to break the glass. And a couple of things on break the glass. We tell you that it's, you know, a medical provider should be the one that's breaking the glass. And then additionally, it's auditable. So anytime a patient's data is accessed without consent, that is something that we do audit, and we do share that information with the compliance officers. All right, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and accept the terms. All right, I'm not going to manage consent because I'm going to assume the patient is unable to either give consent for themselves or is a danger to self or others. And I'm going to go ahead and unlock the patient data. And it's going to give me, I need to select a reason. And so these are the only two approved reasons that you would be able to break the glass for these folks. And it would be the patient's unable to give consent because they're either a harm to another person or harm to themselves. And once I do that, I'll go ahead and continue, unlock the patient's data. and I'm able to access the data. And then I'll kind of show you our new crisis summary data card. And this is where you're able to see at a bird's eye view any kind of court-ordered treatment, who the primary care is, suicide history, level of care, OHR advocate, a lot of the things that you're working with your patients for SMI, you'll be able to see here. And that's, of course, if we're getting that data from the data source. So if we have some data sources that aren't sending it, you wouldn't see it here. But yes, for the most part, a lot of our data source are sending this information to us. Now, if I was to continue to go to another patient and then come back to this patient, because I've broken the glass, I shouldn't have to break the glass again for this patient. I should be able to continue to go to this chart, come back to it again, and still see this data. If I log out for the day and I log in, then the break the glass process would need to be repeated again. All right. Anything you want me to show additionally, Keith?
No, I think that was a good demonstration. Christy, is there anything that comes to your mind?
Not offhand. I'm looking to see if there are questions in the chat.
And I didn't see any questions specific to this demonstration.
Awesome.
The one thing I would add, Sandra, is
Absolutely.
as Sandra is talking about the crisis summary card, that information is meant to be a what's the most current data on that patient. So it's replaced. It's not a historical representation. That would be in documents and elsewhere. But the information there is the most updated information based on that patient and when they were seen last.
Yes, thank you, Keith. That is true. You'll get the latest and greatest in this view.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll hand it over to you.
So Sandra, before you do that,
There's
you
a
might
question.
want to start sharing again. There is a question that came up, and that is, are you able to download the patient info once you break the glass, Sandra?
Can you, well, you can download a PDF version, but not a CDA or a CCD. So yes, you should be able to look at that data. You've broken the glass already for all intents and purposes. But like I said, we would always caution. We don't get a lot of break the glass events, to be honest with you. Most people are applying their consent because they have embedded workflows where they have maybe someone at the front desk or a medical assistant getting those consents uploaded before they even go to see the clinician. But of course, there's instances where, you know, the provider maybe in the evening or on the weekend, they have to access data for a patient that's, you know, in a crisis. So I believe that you can still download that data. Sochi, can you confirm that for me? I think she might be on mute. But if for some reason we can get back just to get confirmation on that. But you can download a PDF version of the patient's data.
Yeah.
We just tell you that if you're uploading it anywhere, please be careful if you're redisclosing this data, if you're releasing medical records, there's going to be a pop-up on all the documents. There's going to be a little write-up that says, you know, that this is a 42 CFR controlled document and you should not be redisclosing it without the consent of the patient.
Yeah. And Sandra, I will add to that. So the piece Sandra just brought up, the ability to download a CCD, we are still validating on the 42 CFR part information because it has to have the redisclosure statement in there. We do have it to where that redisclosure is in there. Once that's released, you should be able to download. But in this case, downloading a PDF, you're already in there, you're broken the glass, you've already signed that you understand that this is. Downloading something that's structured that you can move forward with, we need to make sure it's tagged. So there will be more information on that as we continue to roll out functionality within this environment.
Yep, correct. Thank you, Keith. All right,
Okay.
I think I'm okay to stop sharing.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and start sharing again. And at this point, Christy, would you like to go over next steps for alerts in Portal?
I'd be happy to. Thanks. I just find this is the second webinar we've done. And so it's the second time that I've seen all the new features in the HIE under the new platform. And it's just a very exciting, as Keith was saying, it's just a very exciting time for us to see how many of the former workflow problems or barriers that we used to experience as when I was an end user are being resolved. So it's a great day. We wanted to talk just a little bit to wrap this up, talk a little bit about what are the next steps that organizations need to take in order to get moved over into HIE 3.0. And so we'll talk first just about alerts. So we're actually have all flavors of alerts currently available in HIE 3.0, the HDH platform. So real-time alerts are available there, batch are available there, clinical, hospital, ED, all of it's available there. The only thing an organization needs to do in order to access alerts now through HDH is to submit a new patient panel. We want to really emphasize that the current alert environment under Mirth is scheduled to sunset August 30th of 2021. So we have a little over about 6 weeks for all organizations to upload a new patient panel in order to transition by the end of August. Next slide, please. For portal, there's a little bit more. All portal services also, as you just saw, are currently available in HIE 3.0. However, in order to get logon credentials and access to the HDH portal, any user of the system will need to sign up for and complete required training. And at the end of the training, you would be issued your new usernames and passwords. The scheduled sunset date for the current Mirth portal is September 30th of 2021. So this means that all organization users, those folks who will actually access the portal on HDH, need to complete that training, sign up for and complete that training, get new usernames and passwords on or before September 30th of 2021. Next slide, please. So as just a reminder, for alerts, it is uploading a new patient panel by the end of August. For portal, it's complete, sign up for and complete the required training for portal access. We'll be sending out this deck, which has a live version of this registration link, but you'll also find that on our Health Current website. This logs you in for a selection of training slots that have been made available through the month of August. We have a complete month of August calendar up there right now. But if you need additional training slots because the times simply don't work for all the end users in your organization, just reach out to your account manager so that we can take a look at making some additional slots available. Next slide, please. So most importantly, questions, contact your account manager or send an email if you don't know who your account manager is to HIEsupport@healthcurrent.org. Again, we have key dates out there where we want all organizations to move over. And after those sunset dates, the plan is to no longer support the old HIE platform. I think that's it. Next slide, please. Should be questions. Yes. Keith, you want to take it away for questions?
Yes, ma'am. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead. There was a few questions we answered in the demonstration because they pertain to that. So coming back up to the top, will we be demonstrating single sign-on today? So no, we look at single sign-on, or I look at single sign-on from our ability to do a comprehensive interface with your system. We are looking at other ways from a single sign-on perspective into our environment that'll give you the full suite. That's currently being vetted and looked at, but when you do sign into the HIE 3.0 portal, that's what you get from that perspective. You can navigate around in there once you're inside that environment. More as it's developed and as we move forward with single sign-on. And again, I want to bring up one of our key goals is to integrate into your environment. So your sign-on, if you're at organization A and you sign in through Cerner, you go to your download documents and it automatically brings documents in from our environment. So there's a lot of different aspects how we look at this. So the other piece is, this is, as Chrissy mentioned, will be sent out to everybody as well. So moving down with more questions. And that was one of the questions. Somebody had to step away. Will this be emailed out and or be made available? And yes, it will. Are the information automatically uploaded to the chart? And are you able to download the patient info? Okay, let me answer the first question. Are the information automatically uploaded to the chart? So I want to make some assumptions here that what you're talking about, and that is tied back to the first question, and that is how does the information get imported into the chart? The two going hand in hand. So information is brought into our chart through interfaces that we have with what I referred to in the past, data sources. In one of the early slides on when I brought up those different data sources and access and data fidelity and how it comes in Mirth Connect, that all goes through our Connect engine and how we interface with your systems within your organizations to upload. We can also bring data in through secure file transfers, where you download or information and then upload it into an SFTP, and then we can bring it in that way for different types of data that we bring into our environment. So there's really, to answer that question, we bring data into our environment for really a couple primary avenues. One, direct connections into from data sources through those interfaces to where we receive medical information, we upload it into our environment to meet those national standards and are mapped into our environment, or from data file uploads into files that we then map into our environment as well. We use our clinical data repository then to make it accessible and send information out to others. Hopefully I answered your question. If not, please type in some clarity and we will come back to it. This is the question that we talked about, and that is, are you able to download patient information once you break the glass? I gave an answer to that about the redisclosure piece. Thank you, Sochi. Sochi is one of our key staff members working on this and gave an answer to this. And Sochi's answer was a definitive yes, you are able to download after breaking the glass. And she couldn't unmute because for security reasons, we do mute everybody. But thank you, Sochi, for that. And when you do download it, it should or it will have that that it is protected data for redisclosure purposes as well that I was talking about. So are these required trainings on the site yet? I did not see them. So the required trainings are being set up. This is where you need to contact your account manager to be able to set that up, or go through the slide that Christy showed on how you set up to either attend one of the training webinars or to get into our environment for that. But they are currently being set up. Caitlin or Sarah, would you like to add anything to the training piece that you're currently, how you're moving forward with that?
I believe this training schedule have been posted through August on our SharePoint site under the events section. And then as we are looking for more participations from our group, then we can post additional future training dates.
And then it is, oh, go ahead, Christy.
I'll just add one thing to that. We actually send out the link to register for the trainings in the Health Current Monthly Update. So it did go out in the June update, and I expect that it'll be in there in the update that's out next week. There are actually folks already registered for some of the early August trainings. So multiple ways to the link.
So continuing on, and I want to make sure I don't miss questions. Is there a list required trainings, and where do we go? The link was just put into this chat, and it's for the portal access. So the training that's required is to receive your username and password for the portal. And then for confirmation purposes, yes, the PDF does have the redisclosure warning. Yes, anytime that we return 42 CFR Part 2 specific information, we do put the redisclosure on there. I know I've looked at the validation on the CCDs, I'm going to ask Sochi if she could chime in the chat with a yes that it's on the PDF, because how you download a PDF, there's a slight difference than bringing in a CCD. So Sochi, if you could also put in the chat, if you're still on mute, if the redisclosure is in there on the PDF when it's downloaded.
Hi,
And
Keith.
then oh,
It's
Sochi.
Sochi. Yes,
There
I
we
was
go.
given the privilege to unmute myself.
Well,
For
nice to have you.
for the PDF, yes, it is there, the redisclosure warning. Were you asking about the CCDA?
CCD, I know it's there because you've shown,
Okay.
we've gone through that. The PDF was never a part that I physically saw. So I like to have eyes or somebody that I trust 100%, such as you, answer that question.
Correct. It is on the PDF.
Okay. Thank you. So great news. So the redisclosure warning is on the PDF. Then in the chat, just so nobody misses it, we did put a link to where you can go into the events to take a look at the training schedules that are coming up. And then what is the deadline for getting our patient panel in? We want everybody, the deadline for the alerts was August 30th. So we want everybody to reach out to their account managers, client support, and get their new patient panels uploaded in the new environment so you can start receiving them out of HIE 3.0. And then September 30th is the deadline. We want everybody trained and transitioned over to the new environment. Now, this also has to do with we're transitioning from an old database and I hope everybody can actually really respect the fact of the difficulty of maintaining two large CDRs. Getting everybody transitioned to the same environment is going to do us a wonder, or going to be wonderful for our state and our ability to access information. And it's going to help out our technical team here at Health Current so they can stop pulling their hair out of their head as well, because those are two large databases that they're maintaining to ensure that everybody has data when and where it is needed. Okay, so I see no other, are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any others coming up. And yes, so we have a percentage of alerts are currently being sent out through the HIE 3.0 platform. All the channels, inbound channels, those interfaces have all been transitioned for the past year over to our environment. We've got alerts. We started transitioning those a couple months ago to where we started reaching out to a few just to see how everything works. This is our official. We want to scale. We want to get everybody off the old environment, but we also want to validate to make sure everything's working as well. So it's going through some of those validation processes with some of the early transitions. And now we're at a place where we're comfortable. We want everybody in the pool to move over into the new, and I'm going to say exciting environment that's meeting today and tomorrow's needs. So I would also add, we did over, I think it was 7 million alerts came out of our HIE 3.0 last month. So that's plus or minus. I know it was just over 5, but under 10. So my memory as I get older goes a little bit. So I just went close to the middle at 7 million that came out. So we are up, we are running with alerts. We do have our first portal users inside the portal as well. So we do have another question that's come in. And that is, that is from our staff. So to address Deborah's question, all the training sessions are the same. You are only required to attend one of the sessions in order to receive portal credentials. And the portal credentials are your username and password, and you only have to attend one. Thank you for the clarification on that. But everybody receiving a portal username or password needs to attend. It's not one per organization, it's one by end user. Okay. So with that, we've got 3 minutes left. We can gain 3 minutes back. And I got to tell you, from me, having spent the past number of years building up the environment with a great team in a great state that takes interoperability serious, I got to say how exciting it is to start moving this out. And I'm going to do a shameless plug that we're putting more emphasis on end user experience as we move forward. We've heard everybody loud and clear. So in this environment, we want to know your use cases. We want to know how we can better support you, but we need to get you over into this environment. So we're doing it from an API first environment. So we're doing it from an environment that we can scale and we have the efficiency in, and we can learn where the gaps are and what we need to change to meet your end use cases as well. Any parting words, Christy?
I don't think so at this time, Keith. Just thank everyone for taking time out of your day to join us for this. Spread the word. Sunset date's coming.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all. Yep.
Keith.
Go ahead,
Oh, I'm
Christy.
sorry.
Christy.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Christy, Keith, Sandra, Sochi, for participating, as well as all of our HIE participants and staff who are on today's call. Just a reminder, we will be sending out a copy of the slide deck and a link to this pre-recorded webinar. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to get your reach out to your account managers and get the ball and training moving forward. Thanks, everybody.